Just when you thought it couldn't get any bigger, it just did. A huge announcement on the Pat McAfee show. Rich Rod's not only coming home, but he's doing it with a bang, baby.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up? Welcome back in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am the host, and this is Locked On West Virginia, brought to you by FanDuel. Game Time. It's game time this time. I'm sorry. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We talk about your team every single day. I'm chugging. I got some body armor in me today. I have chugged a Mountain Dew already. I'm not going to lie. So you were close, JDK. You were close. So it keeps getting better for us, right? Like, this is a fever dream. It really is. This is one of those situations that I just didn't see playing out for us. I thought it was going to go wrong. I was the pessimist almost the whole way. A lot of it was to protect my own feelings because, I was going to be upset if this didn't happen and we hired like Jeff Munkin or somebody like that, right? So, yeah, of course, when it was announced, I'm like, holy crap, this is actually going to happen. Let me share my screen with you. And for those of you listening on podcast, well, I'm sorry. I can tell you where to go for some of this stuff. It's on X, of course. And there's just so much right here. West Virginia football has been posting stuff left and right. Here is a picture of Ren Baker with Rich Rod, Rita, looks like his daughter and probably her husband, getting on a plane, heading back home. That's exciting. That's breaking news, really. That just posted 6 minutes ago. So as long as they make it home on the plane, we're good, right? I'm that kind of person. I'm crazy enough to think like that. And so but there's been a stream of stuff going out. Here is a video of Ren Baker, if you haven't seen it yet, calling somebody saying, yeah, I'm going to pick up Rich Rod now. But it's just been terrific, man. And look, here's Pat McAfee's official announcement. It is official. Rich Rodriguez is back to the head coach of West Virginia Mountaineers. He wants to make West Virginia a winner again. So it's been, a steady stream of stuff like that coming out today. Just a celebration, hearkening back to 2017, if you want to, talk about that or whatever. So I can't believe this happened. I continue to just kind of freak out about it. So here's the news, right? Pat McAfee announced earlier today we'll be live from the Coliseum tomorrow. We will lead up to the official press conference, which will begin at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gold and Blue Gates open at 10:30 a.m. Concession stands will be serving beer. So they're going to be riled up whenever Rich Rod finally gets on stage there. I can't wait to hear all this. I can't wait to consume all this. Inject it into my bloodstream. Give it to me now. I can't believe it. It's going to be a celebration for us that we just haven't had in a long time. And we're getting back to the basics of just good old fashioned hard-edged football, which is what we'd all been looking for, right? We've all been wanting. So it's a super exciting time for us. There's a lot of questions that I have. So let me get off the screen here now. I think the questions I have are, okay, who is going to stay? What players are going to stay? I had a text conversation, just one exchange with Jaheim White yesterday. I've been talking to players like I've shot it in a text to Xavier Bosley, other people like that, and just trying to get a feel for what that hard edge mentality is like from their perspective. Obviously, Jaheim White doesn't know what that is. But, obviously I told Jaheim White, I'll just say what I told him. I said, look, brother, I don't know if you're going to stay or go, but in this offense, under this coach, you probably lead the country in rushing or be close. They had the number 2 rusher in football this year, and Steve Slayton and Pat White were on Sports Illustrated magazines because of this offense. So it worked then. It still works now. It's literally working as we speak at Jacksonville State, where they just won a conference title, and he's adapted it over the years. Obviously, it's not the same offense that we ran, but it's a good offense. So really excited about that. But that's one of my questions: who's going to stay? Who's going to go? Obviously, Jaheim White would be the number 1 player. I think let me make sure. Trotter is right there, but I would say Jaheim White is the most impactful player with this offense. CJ's in that conversation too, because obviously that Thunder and Lightning works well. We've seen it with Owen Schmidt and Steve Slayton and Noah Devine. So yes, absolutely that. And then we already know Xavier Bosley is going to stay. He posted spot the ball, which I already knew. I'd had a conversation with him that he was going to stay if it was Rich Rod. He was going to stay no matter who the coach was. He just likes being a Mountaineer, so that's great. But yeah, so there's a lot going on. And then other questions I think I have are, who's he going to bring with him? What coaches? Who could he lure here? And then the ultimate question is, who do we attack in the portal? A lot of people are kind of, it seems like maybe politicking for Nico Marchiol to get this opportunity. And while I'm not against it, I think Rich Rod's going to do an evaluation. And look, this offense really sings with an extremely mobile quarterback. I mean, if you go back and look at Rich Rod's history, he's had a mixture of both. He's had tough runners like Huff, who was there last year, and he's also had what I would call more like Pat White players. I mean, you go to Solomon, you can go to Khalil Tate, you can go to Denard Robinson and Pat White. So he's always had mostly fleet of foot kind of quarterbacks for his offense, but certainly not against the tough runner like Huff. So you go back to he loves to have a passer as well. Sean King, right? The Tulane teams, he's had a little bit of both. It's going to be interesting to see how he evaluates it, because I think Nico's mobile enough, but I wouldn't be against him looking to see. I mean, if you can land a big time guy. Malik Murphy's out there. There are some really big-time quarterbacks that are out there. I don't know what Murphy's done lately, but he started at Texas, right? So I'm not against Nico at all. I just think that Rich has to do an evaluation, see if the kid fits his offense like he wants him to. Obviously, he's left-handed. Maybe that's something he likes or doesn't like as a play caller. There's a lot to it. So up next, guys, on Locked On West Virginia, I'm going to give you a list of coaches that could follow Rich Rod to Morgantown. And I think there's some big names on this list. You don't want to miss it. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel, guys. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and get 150 in bonus bets. That's if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in one simple place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to get started, and you'll get that 150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Okay, so there's a lot of information that we're going to have to consume over the next 6 months, right? Coaches, there's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of content. If you're the kind of person that just get me to game day and I'll watch the game. I'm not saying this show ain't for you. I'm just saying that's the kind of person I am. Is if we're focused on a left guard out of Arkansas State, I'm going to do a video about that. Especially if he's really good, of course. So I appreciate that, Machine Gun Jack Byrne. Appreciate that, Kurt. All you guys have supported me on the Wolfpack, and I appreciate you for inviting me in and all that stuff. So I think there is a lot to digest, I guess is the word I'm looking for here. So here's a list of coaches. This is from Skylar Callahan. He did his research ahead of time. And I'm just going to do the article that he wrote. I think that's the best way to go about it. It says, which coaches could land at West Virginia with Rich Rodriguez? Here are 15 names to watch. A list of assistants who may be on Rich Rodriguez's initial coaching staff at West Virginia. And I'm going to do a separate video about this, by the way, my own video, speculating a little further on some of these guys. So I think number one, we all want to know what Pat White's going to do, right? One of the greatest players, maybe the greatest ever put on the gold blue, is looking for a new job. How special would it be to see White reunite with his college head coach? White does have a few years of coaching experience under his belt, spending time at Alcorn State, South Florida, Alabama State, and Los Angeles Chargers. The fact that he has experience recruiting helps this case. So I'm going to stick on that one for just a second. Yeah, Pat White deserves this shot. I think, obviously he probably owes a lot to Coach Rich Rod for everything through his. I mean, he wouldn't be who he is if Rich didn't take that chance on him and give him that role in that specific offense. So I don't know how he is as a recruiter. I don't know how he is as a coach. I'm sure Rich Rod will do all that. And it'll be fun to see if it happens. I think it's a fun thought to have Pat White on staff, but he's actually got to be able to do the job well, right? He was a great player, but is he a great coach? I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, he's coach of the Chargers and other places. And like I said, I'm not saying he's not a good coach. I'm saying I don't know. And the fact that he hasn't gotten more opportunities kind of makes me wonder why, because he's not the biggest personality, right? Like he's a very quiet kind of guy, and sometimes you have to be more outgoing to be a great coach. You got to be able to communicate well and all that kind of stuff. So not saying he can't do it, not saying he won't be on our staff, but I'm just curious to see what kind of coach Pat White would be in a big-time scenario. So that's just being objective. Rod Smith, the Jacksonville State offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. He was at Glenville State from 93 to 96, and has ever since they've pretty much been inseparable. He remembered that he served as Pat White's quarterback coach in 2007 before following with Rodriguez to Michigan. There he developed Denard Robinson into one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the country. From 12 to 17, he was Rich's co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Arizona and played a big part in the development of Anu Solomon and the early parts of Khalil Tate's career. Rodriguez hired him to be one of the offensive coordinators and quarterbacks coach in 2022. And in 2 years of the FBS level, the Gamecocks offensive unit ranked 38th and 16th in yards per game. Tyler Allen is a big name. Even though Garrett didn't have his best year, I think you have to consider what he had to work with as Garrett as a thrower. So he's a part of the Neil Brown staff. I'll be interested to see how many of these guys stick around, y'all. It's going to be interesting. I think Allen's a big one of those really young coaches with an up-and-coming career, and I wouldn't be against him sticking around. Travis Trickett is a free agent. His dad, Rick, obviously has a huge, big-time relationship with Rich Rod. I'm sure he knows Travis well. 5 years as a student assistant on Rich Rod's staff from 2003 to 2007. He worked with Pat White, returned to Morgantown in 2019 on the Neil Brown staff. Before getting that offensive coordinator gig at South Florida, he was let go in the middle of 2024 season at Coastal Carolina. So he got fired this year at Coastal. But he's primarily worked with quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends throughout his coaching career. So he has some positional flexibility. Chad Scott, which is the number one guy I want to stick around. There's a reason why Chad Scott was tagged with the interim title. He only has the respect of the players and knows how to lead a group of men. And not only has he been phenomenal as a developer of talent, but he's one of the West Virginia's best recruiters. I'd be shocked if Rich Rod didn't at least sit down and have a conversation with him to see if he'd be interested in staying put. The proposed role will play a factor for sure, but he's earned it. So I'll be honest with you guys. This is my number one thing. Out of everything in the offseason, besides the portal, I think keeping Chad Scott you can't even measure how important it would be. If you believe that there are good players on this roster still, and I do, this is the guy. You got to keep him. Jaheim White, obviously hugely tied to Chad Scott. So is C.J. Donaldson. So are the other running backs. But not just that, he's been the offensive coordinator. So Huddy Tuddy, other good players that I think would be good in a Rich Rod offense are also going to be vastly important to him. And I think you have to consider keeping him on staff. And look, you don't have to be his running backs coach. He can be anything you want him to be as long as he's willing to do it. Obviously, he's going to have major options, I think. Chad Scott's an up and coming star in the coaching industry. And honestly, guys, I think this team, in an alternate universe, I personally think Chad Scott could have been successful as a head coach for us. I don't know what's going to play out in the future or anything like that for him, but I would love to see him stay here and stick around because he's earned it. And he's just so awesome. He just is an awesome dude. He really, really is. Okay. Number two for me would be Matt Moore. I'm not saying he's like, obviously Trickett is the O-line coach. Let me get a drink really quick here. And Skylar says here, I'm not saying there's zero chance Matt Moore stays, but Rodriguez has several quality options, one of which is arguably one of the best O-line coaches in the country in Rick Trickett. But considering the job Matt Moore has done with this group, he's worth mentioning. So here's my thoughts on that. I think the offensive line room we have going right now is as a culture that got started by Zach Frazier and has extended all the way through Wyatt Milam, Doug Nestor. That's a good culture, man. It really is. Those guys work hard. The whole room does. They go everywhere together. Xavier Bosley's part of that. And they love Matt Moore. Like, I've been told that firsthand from other players. Like, if Matt Moore is out, I don't know how many of these guys will stick around. And there are players that are ready to play at the Power 5 level already on the roster. It wouldn't be great if we had to replace our entire offensive line or even two or three of them. Like, it would be great for depth, for the future, if we could keep that room intact. I think that room, the running backs, you're going to have to, the secondary's done. We got to get rid of the secondary pieces for the most part. There may be salvageable parts somewhere on there. I'm not saying there isn't. But at the, Aubrey Burks, people like that, I think are gone. So, like, you might as well just move on and really go hit the secondary hard for a couple big pieces and getting that recruiting. Linebackers are obviously going to need to be replaced too. If Trotter doesn't come back, he's the number two. For me, he's the number two person you go to on the roster and say, look, I need you to stay. Only because I think Jaheim White can have the biggest impact, obviously. You put Jaheim White in this offense, I'm telling you, it's a wrap. He's going to do big numbers, possibly lead the country in rushing if they get a good offensive line. He's that electric in the open field, and this offense gives you options at a running back. You've literally got two or three options on a run, and a guy that's as creative as him would do so well here in this offense. So, yeah, I'm excited, obviously. Blaine Stewart, if you're going to ask me like in my heart, for just my heart, he's my number one choice because it's Coach Stu's son. Of course, Rich had his father, Bill, on staff for a long time, and he succeeded him. And it would only make sense to offer Blaine a spot. He's done a great – this is now picking up. Those first things were my words. This is now Skylar Callahan saying. And it would make sense to offer Blaine a spot. He's done a great job on the recruiting trail, and he keeps some level of familiarity around. And he's done a pretty good darn job developing the talent in that room. I do agree. You got Willie Green from Jacksonville State, the D-line coach. He's a good pick, but obviously the slam dunk hire that Rich Rod can go make, and I was texting with him yesterday, and hope to have him on the show. We've been trying to make this happen to get Jamil Adai on the show. We're supposed to be working that out. I don't know if it's going to happen. He has a very busy schedule. He sent me a screenshot yesterday of him in the film room with all the Bills staff. So, obviously he never gets a chance to leave that room. So he's very, very very busy guy. Hold on, I'll show you guys. Let's see. Let's find it here. yeah. So as you can see, he never gets to leave that room there. So, you know, uh, I understand. So if he's not able to come on, it's still nice to know that he's obviously a big Rich Rod guy, played for Rich Rod, and wants to be on the staff. I think I'm not quoting him by saying that. Don't quote me, but I just like to have him on and been trying to make that happen. So yeah, Jamil Adai is an awesome dude. So yeah, anyways, we'll see if it happens, guys. I'll keep you updated. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, let's put a bow on this and talk about the future a little bit. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time, guys. You know, Game Time is one of those apps that it just makes life easier for you. It filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals. And that way you don't have to search through thousands and thousands of tickets. It has a panoramic view that you can look around in the seat before you buy. It's got one of the most flexible ticketing policies in the ticketing industry. It's got event cancellation, job loss protection, everything you can think of and more. And toggling on the all pricing feature, guys, up front, you can have no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and ask yourself, what time is it? It's game time. Here we go, baby. So exciting news, obviously, with the Pat McAfee show. If you didn't hear earlier on the show, there'll be a press conference tomorrow at 1:30. The Pat McAfee show is at noon. I imagine Rich Rod, there'll be a lot of ruminating and reminiscing and just all that great stuff about the old days and what it used to be like and what hard edge means and hold the rope and his pee will be flaming hot and all that whole thing. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I think it's great for our university. It's our time to step back into the spotlight and take over this Big 12. That's just a mystery. And maybe position ourselves for the future, right? Maybe we move to a better conference someday if we do good enough over the last, let's say, 4 to 6 years. Obviously, I'm dreaming big right now, and just let me do it. I know there's going to be somebody in the comments like, pump the brakes. I know, obviously, all this stuff probably isn't going to come to fruition. I'm good with that. But at least I'm the kind of fan that dreams about it until it's not happening, right? Just like Pat McAfee did. There's still a road. There's still a road to the conference championship last year with Neil Brown. That's how I am too. So I like to lean on the optimistic side of things. And look, this could backfire. This whole thing could backfire, no doubt about it. But I don't think it will, because you're going to give a good coach, great coach in my opinion, the not unlimited resources, but a lot of resources. Already, he's got way more than he's ever had to work with. Michigan doesn't count, in my opinion, because how do I put this? I've said it a few times. If you've never read the book 3 and Out, it kind of talks about it. But first of all, once Rich got there, they realized almost immediately that he wasn't going to fit in. This is a West Virginia guy in the North that like I've said before, he went from coaching 2.5-star kids to 4 and 5-star kids that had options. And they weren't going to, like Pat McAfee said on his show, or maybe it was on Inside the Gun. Rich Rodriguez is a guy, when you're running sprints, if you put your hand on the line instead of behind the line, that's a detail he's going to point out. Get your hand off the line, get it behind the line. Some of these more pampered players that are 5-star players that can go anywhere, and there's more money for them. They don't want to hear this stuff. And the really good players at West Virginia always wanted to be coached like that. You got to want to be coached hard. I was that kind of player. I love to be coached hard. I just needed to be. That's just me personally. I needed somebody to crack the whip, because I'm not very good at motivating myself. So I think Rich will be great for that. We're going to lose players because they're not going to like him. In my opinion, I think that'll probably happen at some point. Maybe a good player, but we're going to have the culture we want. And here's one other thing I want to say. People are saying hard edge is back, and yes, it is. But I also just don't want to crap all over Neil Brown's legacy from a. I think he tried to coach toughness in this team. Look at the way we ran the ball. I'm just saying this roster ain't soft. I think we're doing some of these guys a disservice, and we need to be careful with some of the stuff we say because there are players on that roster that played for Neil Brown, and I just think we have to be careful. Was Neil Brown hard edge? No, not so much. But did we run the ball more than any team in the Big 12? And did we run it well? Did we lead the – you don't lead the country in rushing at the Power 4 level if you're not tough somewhat. Flat out. You don't get Zach Frazier, one of the toughest, if not the toughest offensive lineman in our history, without being tough a little bit. So I'm just saying he wasn't soft. He may not be as hard edge as Rich Rodriguez, but he wasn't soft either. And I just don't want to crap all over the guy. I feel like that's what's happening here. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm all for Rich Rod, obviously. I'm like the biggest fan. I'm a fanboy. But, that's all I have to say, guys. I think we, just like it's been well said a few times before we get off here, this is going to be a smooth handoff. This is not from Dana to Neil, where this was just everything was bad. They have built this all up for Rich Rod, and it's almost poetic justice that although he left us in a bad place with the way he left, the reason he left was because he wasn't getting the things he asked for. He didn't have facilities upgrades guaranteed because it passed along. He couldn't get $30,000 for his coaches, like upgrade because we were winning at such a high level. That makes me more mad than anything. Pass along, and those guys weren't committed to winning like Ren Baker is for sure. And if we win, we'll pay the guys. I promise you. We may not be the richest university, but Rich Rodriguez will walk around with an $8 million tag on if he gets us to certain places, I believe. So, yeah, I think it's going to be great, guys. We'll see what happens. There's a chance for us to really make some serious noise, I think, in the college football playoff if we can get back to what we were, right? So let's see if we can. Well, there's so many people in here that just critique every little word. Power 4, it's really a power 2. Who cares? Okay, sure. If you want to say that. Guys, I appreciate you for being here. I don't think I have much else. We'll probably go live right after the press conference tomorrow. So if you get out of from watching the Rich Rod press conference and the Pat McAfee show, I'll be right here right after. So yeah, let's do that. I'll see you then. I'll probably go live again tonight as well. There's a lot more to talk about. I have so many ideas for content. So it's so much room for activities. Hope to see you then, guys. Thank you for all being here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one. For Rich Rod, for Pat, and for me, this episode's over, and I'm out.